Andrew Ferguson, he'll now be taking over as chair. That frees up his prior seat taken over by Mark Meador. That now means FTC will be in full Republican control.
Hi, Cam here from Transcend. In this conversation, I sit down with Dave Barmore, co-founder and regulatory expert at Runway Strategies, to discuss the upcoming changes in data privacy and AI legislation with the new administration taking office on January 20th. Dave outlines key areas to watch, including leadership changes in Congress, the potential for a federal data privacy bill, and the role of the FTC under new Republican leadership. The conversation also highlights the rapid pace at which states are enacting their own privacy laws, which could influence federal legislation. Enjoy. Alrighty then, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. My name is Ivey over here at Transcend. I am joined alongside Dave Barmore from Runway Strategies. Dave, how you doing today, man?
I'm good, man. How are you? Hard to believe we're already halfway through January.
It's wild. There's a lot of things going on, and we have to keep up, right? You know, you got the 20th inauguration coming up, and that's why I wanted to bring you on. I wanted to give the listeners and everyone a little bit more insight on what to look for with what's coming up in the new administration when it comes to privacy and AI. So we'll just jump right into it. First question for you. What are the three main things to look for in DC with the new admin coming into play on January 20th?
Yeah, it's a great question. Like you said, interesting time here in DC as this week marks the last week of the current Biden administration, and we'll be welcoming the new Trump administration starting on Monday with his inauguration, and a lot going on as this transition period kind of kicks off. So I thought it'd be helpful just to kind of outline what I really see are the three main things to look out for as it relates to data privacy and AI here in DC. So first off, looking at the House of Representatives, the House Energy and Commerce Committee is the committee that oversees all tech-related policies. So that includes data privacy, AI. The committee is now being chaired by a Republican from Kentucky named Brett Guthrie. He'll be now chair of the full committee. He's previously held roles serving as a leadership on certain subcommittees related more in the healthcare space, but this will really be his time to take over the full committee. So he'll be driving the priorities and the different bills. So I really would look out for interviews where he kind of positions himself and talks about the priorities for the new Energy and Commerce Committee. He said in recent interviews that he does want to pick back up the idea of Congress passing a federal data privacy bill. Now, this is something that has been considered and debated last year, and many Congresses have tried to agree on what that broad kind of comprehensive federal data privacy framework should look like. Unfortunately, to date, we have not reached agreement between Republican and Democrats on what that looks like. Will 2025 be the year in which Congress can finally pass federal data privacy law? We'll see. I think, it's now's the time to really look to see what these committee leadership roles, how they talk about these issues. In addition to data privacy, I think children's online safety, you had a bill that nearly got to the finish line back in 2024. House Republicans weren't able to get that Children's Online Safety Act passed in 2024. Chairman Guthrie has said he does want to revisit that issue as well. So I think definitely something to look out for on the House side. Second thing, moving over to the Senate, the Senate Commerce Committee is the committee of jurisdiction on all tech-related issues. New leadership there is Republican Senator Ted Cruz from Texas. He'll now be taking over as Republicans have control of the Senate. What's interesting with Senator Cruz is that his home state of Texas has passed their own comprehensive data privacy law. So there are some saying that that could really influence what the senator proposes as that initial framework for a federal bill. So I think what we've seen in previous Congresses might be markedly different with what the senator proposes, given he's got his own constituents, his own legislators and regulators from his home state that he'll need to be mindful of. So that'll be interesting to watch. I think over the coming weeks, both Chairman Guthrie on the House side, Senator Cruz have said they want to meet to discuss and align on their own priorities, talk about timeline. Do they pursue comprehensive privacy first? Do they pursue kids' online safety? Do they bundle them together like we saw on the House side? There are a lot of different ways and iterations that this could take. Be on the lookout for that as it relates to kind of congressional activity. The last thing is on the administration side. The agency to watch will be the FTC, which is now going to be chaired by a Republican, Andrew Ferguson. So Andrew Ferguson was a sitting commissioner on the FTC. He'll now be taking over as chair. That frees up his prior seat, which will be taken over by Mark Meador. That now means FTC will be in full Republican control. It'll be very interesting to see what priorities Ferguson will take on as the lead with the FTC. It's expected that he will prioritize children's online safety, addressing what he's calling, censorship of conservative voices from social media platforms, content moderation, that lightning rod kind of political issue that conservatives have taken on. I think we should really expect to see the agency take that and prioritize those issues. What's also, I think, going to happen is that we will see the agency as a whole do less broad sweeping regulatory action and move to a more kind of case-by-case enforcement mentality. For the last 4 years, the Biden administration, the FTC under Lina Khan, has moved on some really broad sweeping regulatory actions, whether it's relating to commercial surveillance. I think we're likely to see a lot of that downplayed under the new Republican FTC. So definitely something to watch as it relates to the administration. So those are the three things that I would say to watch out for looking ahead to 2025.
Okay, great. I appreciate you doing that. Now, let's dig a little bit deeper into some of those. First of all, let's talk a little bit about the legislation. Can you go through some of the challenges previously from the last Congress and why they haven't been able to be passed into a federal law?
Yeah, it's a great question. For many years now, Congress has been debating and trying to come to an agreement on what should consist in a federal regulatory framework as it relates to how companies are collecting, storing, and managing consumers' data. So I think the issues that continually arise as points of contention are preemption. We are going into this new year in 2025 with 19 states having passed their own comprehensive data privacy laws. Should Congress pass something that would essentially preempt all of those existing state laws, that's a huge issue. Private right of action, what enforcement capabilities should the FTC and other federal regulators have in carrying out that law? Should the law consist of a private right of action? That's a very politicized issue. So that's another one. Civil rights and data minimization. Those two items have really largely come to the forefront with Maryland having passed their own bill, taking a more GDPR data minimization approach. I think it's fair to say, going back to Senator Cruz, if he were to want to push for a model like his home state of Texas, I think we'll largely see less of an emphasis on things such as civil rights, data minimization, in more words, moving toward a permissive, largely kind of notice and opt-out approach rather than the GDPR-like regime, limiting the collection of data to only what is necessary. So that's what I think we should look out for. It'll be interesting to see, with Senator Cruz, if we'll push for that Texas-like model, or if we'll move and continue along with more of the models that we've seen come out of states like Maryland and GDPR over in Europe.
Would you say that that is pretty different compared to what Congress has considered in the past?
Yeah. So this past year, there was the American Privacy Rights Act, and that took many different forms. But I think what the biggest issues were, like I said, there was a section on civil rights and data minimization. So should those be included? I think those will be controversial issues and ones that are likely not going to be championed by Republicans in both chambers. So Again, it'll be interesting to see what Senator Cruz and Chairman Guthrie come to an agreement on, but I think it's fair to say it'll be somewhat different than what we've seen with previous Congresses.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you, Dave. I really appreciate that insight, and it's very helpful. And anyone that's watching or following along, we're definitely going to keep you guys in the know as obviously as the new office its place on January 20th and the changes that follow. So stay tuned for more updates along for the rest of the year. Dave, is there anything else that you want to leave us with as we kind of wrap this up and go into the new admin and all the new stuff going on?
No, the last kind of parting thought I will leave with you all is, states are starting up their own state legislative sessions. Nearly every state will be kicking off their 2025 session sometime in January. So I think it'll be very interesting to see as more and more states move on their own respective data privacy and AI laws, how that will inform what Congress does. So I do think timing with states moving on their own proposals in Q1 and Q2, I think, that could kind of shape and influence what we see come out of the two committees I mentioned based on what the states do during their 2025 session. So I think the timing, the sequencing of that should be something to watch as well. And definitely the states are going to be moving at light speed. So while it's important to keep up with what's going on in DC, make sure you're plugged in and aware of what all the states are moving. That's just going to be, it's going to be a wild 2025 session coming up here on all these issues. So
amazing. Well, Dave, thank you so much as our legislative correspondent expert over there in DC. We really appreciate your time.
thank you. Appreciate it, Cameron.